15, 12 o'clock. Please call the roll. Please.
Nelson?
Yes.
Knapp?
Yes.
Marcinko?
Yes.
Goodchild?
Yes.
Gerke?
Yes.
We're going to do the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Motion to approve the agenda?
Any opposition? Okay. Just wanted to make sure. I don't want there to be any discussion. Okay, we're moving on to general discussion. I'd like to welcome those in the chamber and those on TV. Happy New Year to everybody, and Lamar's Daily Sentinel. So citizen comments not related to agenda items. Anybody? Go ahead, Greg. Approach the podium, state your name, and ask your questions.
Thank you. Greg Mitchell, and 1525 Central Avenue. Last time I was here, there were a number of questions that I asked that I was directed to go to Northwest Bank to get the answers. And I did, and had a very good conversation with the president of the bank. He was very straightforward and open with the answers that he gave me. And so I wanted to stop by here and let you know what the answers were. The first question was, how long did the bank have that piece of property listed? And they never did have it listed. Now, I want to clarify this a little bit. The president of the bank in Lamar's was not the individual who dealt with the consul, or it was somebody, I think, out of Sioux City. So this was information that he had received, but it had never been listed, so consequently there was never a listing price. They might have had an asking price, but it was never listed. And there was absolutely no time frame given to anyone about when that needed to be done, when the purchase needed to be done by. And it was really interesting because during that conversation I had, he had told me that they had just received a inquiry that very day from an individual interested in the piece of property. And so I asked him how they ever found it if you never had it listed, and it was through reports from the city council meetings and Lamar's Sentinel articles. So I just wanted to bring that up. And during the conversation, I also asked about whether or not the $100,000 that was going to be reimbursed to the Community Betterment Program was above and beyond the Community Reinvestment Act, where community banks have to reinvest back into the community. And he did not know at that point in time whether or not it was above and beyond what they would normally give, because he did not have the budget for the year. So I didn't get an answer on that. But during that time, I did come up with some questions with him about the cost of maintenance. And it was told at the last meeting that the cost of maintenance was going to be the responsibility of Main Street Theaters. And I just want a little bit more clarification on that, if I could.
If there's maintenance inside the structure for the movie theaters, chairs, popcorn machines, stuff like that, we believe that that's in the budget, the projection we saw. But if there's a new roof or we need to replace all the windows, that's not in that budget. The roof has been replaced, and new heating and cooling equipment were put in when the theater was reopened. So I would consider anyway, major improvements have been just recently done.
Well, if we're looking at that as being major improvements and so forth, wouldn't we as a community think it would be responsible for us to have an inspection of that building before we put another $350,000 into that building without having an inspection?
We could sure do that. We can sure do that.
So are you saying that it will be done?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a reasonable request. I mean, we have to see how much it's gonna be, but I think, but, you know, we've had the, fire chief's been through it when it was redone and reopened, so they've done that kind of stuff. So, you know, if we wanna have an independent, I don't know, let's say plumber, electrician to go through it, I don't see any problem with that. I think that that's a reasonable request.
Okay, if there was something found that there was structurally a problem with that, would there be a change in the purchase of that building?
I think there needs to be a discussion if there's a structural problem. You know, I don't think that they'd have lent them the money if there was a problem structurally in the first place, but maybe they...
Well, I asked the bank if they had performed an inspection, and the answer to that was no. So I would say that they did not have an inspection before they loaned them the money. But that'll be a question that you might want to ask the bank yourself.
Right.
Okay.
Typically, in the purchase of any real estate, the lender will not order an inspection for a buyer. Typically, any inspections would be the buyer's sole responsibility to have done. And commonly, buyers and sellers get the term appraisal mixed in with inspection. I'm not saying you are, but I am saying that you said the bank did not have one done. The bank wouldn't. The lender would never have a reason to have it inspected.
No.
They would have it appraised for any buyer. You know, they'd have it appraised if they're lending money on that structure. And if the appraiser come back with a major deficiency or it didn't meet an appraised value, they wouldn't have lent the money to anybody.
Yeah, I understand that, Clark.
I
but,
think it's a reasonable request, Greg.
Okay.
To have an inspection done. We can get somebody in town that's independent of the city to go and do an inspection. I think that's reasonable.
Okay.
It's not a very costly item. Do you think, Scott?
No, I think it's reasonable. I did ask if there was a Phase 1 environmental assessment done, and there was not, either by the bank or the previous owner.
Well, would that be something that would need to be done, do you think?
I don't think that would be needed. I mean, I don't know anything that gives me suspect that we have any kind of environmental concern at that location, other than what the EPA has already found as far as the PCEs, but we already know the outcome of that study. So EPA has already published it. We have a copy of it, and that study did not show any PCEs or TCEs at that location.
Basically in the downtown area is significant enough.
Well, I mean, we got some in this location.
Right.
On this block, this triangular block here,
But not
but
across,
not over there.
not across the street. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's a reasonable request.
Okay, then that'll be great. I have no other questions on that. One of the things that was brought up on this, however, was this was a quality of life issue. And I know I was told that, people who want to move to Lamar's or businesses that want to relocate here look at this quality of life as being something that's very important to them. I think one of the ways in which they also judge the quality of life is how well we take care of the things that we already do have, and also how we take care of the funds that we have, and if we're good stewards of those funds. And sometimes we have to say no to things that we think are the most, are important for quality of life, to take care of the things that we already do have. And I would encourage the council to be looking at that type of thing from this point forward, and to have maybe more open discussions of when these quality of life issues do come up, so that we could have more community input. And I know that by law, you have certain things that you discuss in open meetings and things that you have in closed meetings. However, you as a body might be able to open up more things to be open meeting situations and not just closed deals. I know sometimes you think it's more comfortable to be working in a closed session, but a little bit more openness, especially on these quality of life issues, would be appreciated throughout the community. And I would encourage any citizens to get in touch with their city council people to let them know how they feel about these types of things. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Greg.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Just real quick here, sir, if I may.
Yeah, yep, go right ahead.
When that theater was purchased, just so that the council is aware, we did do a walkthrough of it, and that would have been in 2010. At that time, there was a new roof put on the building. All the doors that didn't open were made to open. All the exit doors were changed out and replaced. The building was added with a sprinkler system, a fire alarm system, fire extinguishers, new exit lights, emergency lights. The wiring was gone through and upgraded in the lower basement area and the main floors. And then the upstairs was basically sealed off at that time, and there is nobody living upstairs. But the windows were intact and things like that as far as to keep the heat in the building and all that stuff. Now, that would have been in 2010 when we walked through before they could even open it back up as a movie theater again. So Jason, myself, and some others have been through that facility. Now, that was 4 years ago. I'm not saying it wouldn't hurt to have it gone through again. But those major items like that have already been added and taken care of, and then it'd be the ongoing thing of, annual inspections of a fire extinguisher and things like that. But your main components of a lot of that stuff is there and was made to be there before it could reopen as a theater. Okay?
But to have somebody do an updated inspection, put in the file, sure is not a bad suggestion. I think that that's a reasonable request, and it's not very costly. So I think we could just find somebody locally to do that, that's an expert in those areas, and get it done. Okay? Anything else? We're good? No, thank you. Okay, have a good day, Craig. Okay, well, next, we're going to slide Mr. Earl up to the podium for the airport thing, because he's got another event to go to.
Earl Dreyer, Airport Manager. You have my annual report in front of you. I'm just going to really speak to the people out there. The airport, our mission out there is to be an effective part of the transportation system of Lamar's. We're one of the legs of the transportation system, and we want to maintain the ability of the city of Lamar's and Plymouth County to be competitive with other cities and counties for new expansion and business opportunities. A lot of people look at the airport and they don't see anything going on out there, but what they don't know is there's a lot of air ambulance that comes in and out of there. We have agricultural services, which everybody seems to notice. We have corporate transportation that comes in from all over the United States that comes in there. Just the other day, we had a corporate jet come in from Kansas City, and they landed here and went up to Boynton. So we are quite competitive in that area. There's other transit aircraft that are not landing here at this time because of the lack of length of the runway. We also provide the corporate and charter services for the local businesses and to attract new startup businesses. One of the new startup businesses that are easily to define is Feenstra Construction. If you go out there around Bodine, you can see his new building. And recreational aviation, which most people notice, those little airplanes flying around up in the sky there, and particularly one that's lit up all over. And we embarked on a AIP, Airport Improvement Program, looking out 20 years. And I don't know how many of you people have seen it, but there's quite a plan that goes to the south that includes corporate aviation. And I don't think I will be around to see that fulfilled. I hope some of you are, and I hope it does get fulfilled. Back when I started in 1983, I would have never guessed that I would have the opportunity to fly 2 jets and several turboprops out of here at Lamar's. I was really quite satisfied at that time to fly my twin-engine aircraft. Now, in this expansion program, we're expansion program for agriculture aircraft, so we can provide more space for agriculture aircraft and thereby increase the viability for our farmers here. To put turnarounds around our present runway extensions. Our present runway extensions are difficult to use because the turnaround radius for the larger aircraft that need to use this threshold They can't hardly turn around there. Well, also, I've been pushing for a long time, and I think we finally succeeded a lot due to Melissa from Bolton and Mink, that the FAA has said that, yes, they will participate in getting us out to 5,000 feet, which a couple years ago it was just flat no. And now we are in that position, and I believe that we should proceed to that so we can remain competitive with the airport up north that's going in. We also in this is the purchase of land that I don't think we've even started yet to maintain the approach system so that the buildings cannot go up there. We do have some zoning processes in there. Certifying our approaches to alleviate requirements to purchase additional lands, which the FAA deems necessary, which I have argued with them the necessity of it, but I could just well talk to that wall. Remodeling of our current airport, security fencing, and continue. Yeah, I'm there. Continue preventive maintenance of the airport infrastructure with the state has been very good at helping us with preventative maintenance on that. We're going to receive a state grant to help replace the first 10 feet of our ramps so that we don't have a ledge that we have to push an airplane over. And if you have a car, you would say, what in the world is the problem with that? But if you have an airplane and you're pushing it backwards and you got to jump it over that ledge and it goes like that because the one tire hits first, you got about $10,000 worth of damage. So I think it's very important that we get that done. I really have nothing else. I'll entertain any questions that anybody else has.
Any questions from the council? Besides the fact that we thank you, Earl, for your work out there.
Yes.
You do a tremendous job. We don't say it enough. We don't say it enough to all the people that work in the city, but you do a great job, and we appreciate it.
All right, thank you. I'll just go out and hit that white stuff again. See you later.
Okay. We're going to go back to Thumbs Up Award. We'll start, John?
Thumbs up to Public Works and other city employees have been involved in our snow removal. We've had a fair amount of snow, but that in combination with the winds and the cold weather and the holidays have created some challenges, so good work, city employees.
Anything? Anything to learn?
Happy New Year.
Okay, you got anything, Kenny? Happy New Year. Okay. Let's continue on to the consent items. All the items listed on the consent agenda be executed by one motion. We have 7 of them today. Approval of the December 16th, 2014 regular meeting minutes. List of bills for the period ending 12/31/14. Designation of the official newspaper as the Lamar's Daily Sentinel for 2015. The appointments. Renewal liquor license outdoor service area, probably not today, for the golf course. Mayor, council, staff appointments for 2015. Urban renewal tax exemption requests. A number of them. Was it 6 or 7? 7 of them. Congratulations, wonderful. Okay, anybody want to make the motion?
Make the motion for first consent items 1 through 7.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of consent items 1 through 7 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, action items. Downtown banners. They don't look good, they need replaced. Is that what it says? Jessica, why don't you give us an overview since you're in charge of this? Tell us what it is.
It is basically, like you said, replacing all of those downtown banners that are on our poles for the last couple of years. Every time we take them down and put them up, there are more and more of them that are basically deteriorated. And they just need to be replaced. They've been here longer than I have, so I think they've outlived their usefulness at this point.
So where are we going to spend the money from? Somebody want to tell me?
Local, hotel motel tax fund balance.
That's the recommended source?
Yes.
Scott? Okay.
And that's okay with hotel motel tax because it's got a fund balance?
Well, we will be talking about that on Thursday night.
I'm just asking. I don't want to step
I
on my
believe
committee members.
with the surplus that is there, this yes, it shouldn't be any problem whatsoever.
How old are the ones that are up now?
Well, I started in 2007, and they were here before I was, so they're quite old.
I'm going to go backwards at this, or maybe a different direction. Are these, do these have a projected life? Would we be better off spending more and getting better? Is there UV protection that could be looked at? I'm not opposed to spending good money for good products.
There's definitely, there's different materials that we can. We've gone through, actually Delana and I did, was it last year, and looked at some designs for them. It kind of depends on exactly how long we want them to last. Typically, you look at about 5 years.
And during our discussions, we did ask about some of the specifics, because this is, I believe this was the pricing for the more vinyl, which is what
Correct.
we've gone to now instead of the canvas.
Canvas.
We have to have more screen printed. And so we asked some of the questions regarding if there's reds in it, do those fade faster than other colors? And basically, it sounds like this is kind of what everybody is going to. And so now whether or not there's something higher quality durability, I think you'd almost be up to some sort of a thin sheet metal product or something then, because it has to, it's going to give for the wind. Unfortunately, we have wind and bad weather.
No, so you feel this is
I
best
think,
bang for the buck?
yeah, because
Okay.
we were very specific in wanting something that was going to last more than a year or two.
Right.
And I think, with having things replaced, repaired a little bit here and there with the ones that we've had, we've definitely gotten the lifespan
Okay.
out of those.
Okay.
And since we haven't had the vinyl before, to a certain degree, we just have to go off of what they
They're
have
telling
done
us,
in other
right.
places and
Okay.
what they've seen, so.
Okay.
And we, some of the designs that we're looking at, it will be different than what we currently have, but we've had help. We've been looking at this for 3 years?
For quite a while, yes, we kind of
how
keep
old our papers are,
pushing
but,
it back.
we had some initial help from the Wells Dairy
Correct.
Design Department to kind of come up with some ideas, suggestions, and, I think they are probably still willing to work with us as we tweak stuff here and there, but
It's
just
probably
a
good.
different, fresh look.
It's probably good to change them every 4 or 5 years anyway, I suppose, just to get a new look, I suppose. Okay, that's all I wanted to know was quality product,
Yeah, that was the recommendation given to us, was to move from that canvas material because it ends up fraying on the rods, and then the bottom will split, and then they're kind of flapping in the breeze, and there's not a lot we can do then to repair them besides get rid of them.
And pretty much they'd all be the same, except we had talked about possibly doing a couple that would stand out right by the visitor center, just to kind of draw people's eyes in there. And
Yep.
But, yeah, obviously, we haven't rushed into it.
And then hotel motel receipts. Bill or Jessica, tell us was a record year last year, right?
It was a record year. The quarterly payment we just received was the largest one we've ever received for hotel motel tax. The fund that they're recommending this come out of has a current unallocated balance of about $60,000. So that's what it would be coming out of. That's built up as we got more than the $100,000 that they awarded each year.
And we haven't been just pigeonholed either. Since Jessica moved into the place next door and so forth, we didn't know quite what the expenses would be, the utility costs, the upkeep costs. So we were trying to hold a little bit back until we got all those numbers figured out, and I think we're getting closer to figuring out those numbers, but we're still going to end up with a little bit of reserve left even after we allocate the money that we get packets on Thursday.
Correct.
And we're going to have meetings at the end of the month, and we'll be back to the council in February. And do the normal thing of trying to give out the way we've done it in the past. So it's going, it's working good, but it's really rewarding when you see that the hotels in our area have collected, and therefore we've collected more because they've collected more. That means there's a lot of people coming to town. So that's something that somebody's got to, splash on the headline somewhere, because that's not happening everywhere. You go to those meetings, Jessica, you report, you go to some of those meetings, and people don't show up in some towns at all.
They sure don't.
And
We're lucky here.
We're pretty fortunate, yeah, blessed, yep. Okay, so we got somebody want to make this motion?
Motion approving funding the new downtown banners through use of hotel motel tax fund balance.
Second.
Any other discussion? You got a motion and a second approving the funding of the new downtown banners through the use of hotel motel tax fund balance. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Crescent Ridge Infrastructure. We discussed on August 19th, probably in what, 2007, 2009, 2011, 2013, and now August of 2014, we discussed it, right?
Yep.
Neil, you want to help us out? Tell us what we want to do?
Sounds pretty bold, and I'm going to tell you what you want to do. My approach, I was kind of waiting to see.
I'm really being proactive today.
Well, I'll give you the LBIC side of this.
Okay.
As we've been preparing to fully market these 6 properties on behalf of the city, we've looked at structuring different covenants, and we've had actually, I guess, what you call a subcommittee that's been working on maybe coming up with some different thoughts than what were originally looked at, and those will be presented to the LBIC board Thursday, which I think will probably fall in line with what the conversations have been and where the thought process has been. I think what is involved here is that in order to market these properties, as you can imagine, if you had someone who was looking to purchase one of these lots, one of the first questions is going to be, is there going to be a street? When will it be put in? Will there be gas? All those types of things. And I think that's maybe what this discussion is about, is
So
what
do
are
we
the
have
thoughts
just
of
a
the city?
gravel street now or no street?
You have a gravel roadway with ditches. You have a stormwater detention basin on Lot 1 that we intend to continue. There is rural water, Southern Sioux, rural water system that goes by. However, I think the feeling of the P&Z and Ken attended that, as well as select members of you folks. We do have that 2006 agreement with Southern Sioux Rural Water that is fully paid for now, whereby we purchased that territory back from them so that city water can prevail, and it's entirely your choice whether it does prevail or does not prevail. We are recommending to you that we use city water. City water is to the west drive of Wells Dairy Corporate. Wells Dairy Corporate is connected to the city sanitary sewer system. There is a sewer lift station down at the intersection of 200th and Key, and that would be the closest location to bring up sanitary, but the water is about a quarter mile closer. And so what I am recommending to you is that we get a hold of some engineers to give us a price for them to do their service in order to determine what the street, water, sewer, storm is going to cost to make those lots so that it's fully developed, so that Neil and Lance Sitzman Real Estate do in fact then know how to respond to potential purchasers of those lots and what will be there. So
And
I think that
and the
that's
council
really-
action says that when there's 2 lots sold, then we can go ahead with the plan, is what the answer is, right?
Yeah, I'm recommending that we do the engineering now so we know what we're up against, but we don't pull the trigger until we have a couple of lots under our belt that's already sold.
Okay.
Okay, I'd make a motion then authorizing staff to design and obtain engineering plans for the infrastructure along 200th Street in front of Crescent Ridge Addition.
Second to the motion.
You got a motion and a second, and we just want to make sure we've got that those 2 lots are sold before we ever.
Well, no,
spend
he
it.
I
just,
didn't-
no,
I
he
didn't
didn't include that.
Include that, I just said, I just made the motion to authorize staff to design and
do the
obtain plans.
design. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're
Yeah.
just doing the design.
Right.
Do we have any kind of estimated cost on what the design
Well,
would
I think
cost
that's
us?
why we're doing this,
No,
right?
I'm talking what the estimated cost of the engineer is going to cost us.
I'll be bringing that back. You will approve their contract.
Because, so there's Southern Sioux water out in front of these properties already?
Yes.
So, really, you could sell the lots, put in septics, and go off the water that's already there. Because if we've got lots sitting up there, and if I'm correct on this, 3 of them are at 40,000, and 3 of them are at 50,000.
Correct.
We got $280,000 worth of sellable property, right? 280, and if it's going to cost us 150 grand to get sewer and water up there, and then you add a street to it, wouldn't it be smarter to discount the lots? I am spitballing here, so this isn't no code.
Well, as we, if we,
Take $5,000 or $6,000 per lot off and say, listen, Mr. Landowner, you have water available, you have a gravel road, and you can put in a septic. We've done this before, not when I was sitting here, but we did it before, and I believe Pippet, Roger, that addition up by Willow Hill Bridle, I know, we originally allowed for some septics where sewer wasn't available, because it doesn't seem to me like, by the time you take water, sewer, and a street up there, we're giving lots away. So why don't we not spend the money and say, go ahead and sell the lots, and if you want to build there, you've got Southern Sioux Road water for now. Now, if they all get sold, and down the road, we decide, hey, we want to pave this, or it's got potential for more development, I'm all in favor of it, but I'll be honest with you, I can't see spending 20, okay, whatever number on engineering, and then an estimated cost on the sale of $280,000 worth of lots. Doesn't even make math sense.
I get, Clark, though, I guess I look at it for potential further development to the west, north, or whatever, especially on the water side. If we let Southern Sioux take those over, what does it cost us, Scott, to get them back?
8,000?
In that agreement, there is a payback of, it's fairly substantial to Southern Sioux. So once you give it up to them, then it'll make very little economic sense to get it back.
Plus, you won't have any fire protection for those lots, and that's one of the reasons we want to run the water, so that we have adequate fire protection out there. They do not have enough water to provide.
And if we have future development, I don't think we want Southern Sioux in the middle of our water
No.
system.
Agreed.
We
Some
paid
future
we paid over $300,000 for the right to have the water rights, and
And if I can make one comment on fire protection, and this is something that, Clark, I'm sure you're not aware of, some of this ISO stuff, we just lowered our score. That would affect the whole city rating, which could affect everybody's insurance payments in the future if we don't maintain the level everywhere inside the city limits once we start developments. So you would have a city that's rated at a 3 and everybody's paying that rate, and now all of a sudden you've got part of your city that's not a 3, it could be an 8 or a 9. Those people are going to pay that rate, but that also could affect your 3 and bounce us back to a 4 or a 5, where everybody's fire insurance goes up then too. So the fire protection thing's the thing we talked about at zoning and stuff like that, for future development of all that area out there. So I would request, I was on in the zoning meeting, that's why I was one of the ones that said, hey, when we start developing city areas, I really would love to see city water there. Now, I don't know about sewer or streets, that's something you guys have to decide as a council. Somebody has to come up here and bargain for paved road instead of a gravel road, or sewer and that sort of thing, Clark. But on the fire side for the insurance thing, that, it's something new because we just lowered that rating and did a fabulous job of doing that citywide, saved hundreds of thousands of dollars, as much as we know anyway. We want to keep going that route.
Sure, absolutely, and I'm not opposed to looking into it. But that was actually, Dave, thank you, because you brought up the second part of my comments here was, I'm not opposed to bringing, I didn't think there was even Southern Sioux up there. I was under the impression that was a well. So, but I'm not opposed to bringing water necessarily up there. I guess I'm kind of opposed to doing it full bore, which means if the water went up, that's one thing. But boy, I tell you what, by the time you go bring sewer up there, it's gonna require another lift station, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it?
Yes.
An additional lift station. Now, we're talking some big cost to get rid of 6 lots. But if we ran a water main up there, that's just my take on it, guys. So if the motion is to to get a study onto the costs. I'd like to see those costs itemized out. Street, sewer, storm sewer, gutter, all itemized so that if we say, hey, let's pull the trigger on one or two of these and not the third, I don't see a win for the dollars that we're looking at. So that's my take.
I think that is the way the estimates are gonna come back, by component, right? It's not gonna come back in total.
Right, we can get it by component.
Yeah, by component, it comes back, and then we address it again.
Okay.
Anything else for discussion?
Call for the question?
Yeah. Motion authorizing the staff to design and obtain engineering plans for infrastructure by component. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's passed.
Rex, a point of clarification, apparently you didn't want to go with the 2 lots sold, so what do we tell the realtor as far as telling the prospective buyers on?
I thought the idea was to get back the prices, and then we're gonna.
Just tell them we're looking for prices for all the infrastructure.
And then we
I mean,
would.
that could take 6 months, you guys are okay with that?
Well,
Not being in limbo for 6 months?
I guess I was assuming that we're gonna have to sell a couple lots, we're not gonna sell one. So I was assuming that we're gonna, if all of a sudden you come back to the next meeting and says we got 2 lots sold, subject to this thing, then we're gonna have to speed along the cost to see if we wanna keep doing it, right? So it can kind of run together, I think.
Okay.
We can always act on it.
Well, yeah.
If somebody buys all the lots out there, we
Let's just try and move as quick as we can on the
You
design.
can say the city council's moved ahead with the idea of getting the cost up there, but if it takes too long for the engineering might have to speed up if we get 2 sold.
If you sell all 6, we can really fast track it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can.
I think that's what we're saying. We just I don't think John didn't want to be tied to the 2 lots for whatever the numbers are. All of a sudden, the numbers come back $250,000. We got issues with 2 lots.
Yeah, and I guess I had understood that you wanted to also, Scott, do the engineering first to see where we're at.
I do.
Yeah, and again, if we have an offer come up or whatever, then speed things up. I wouldn't want to delay that, but with the idea that we're going to do our best to expedite the engineering and design on this.
So just for my clarity, if there's inquiry on these lots, currently, we're not positive if it'll be street, sewer, water, that'll be discussed and determined at a later date once the engineering's done?
I think what you could say is you can tell them to put it in the offer that they need that, and then we've got to act on it. That's the simplest way I would explain it,
Right.
is if they only want to buy the lot, if there's a street, hard surface street in front of it or something like that, then we're going to have to act at the next meeting.
Right, we're expediting the design and engineering, but if an offer comes up, then we'll have to deal with it at a pace beyond, or sooner than what Scott's work is.
And then also, once the engineering's done, then we'll have a better time frame in which to tell prospective buyers
I think that's-
that may take place.
I think that's kind
X
of
amount
the
time.
back end is exactly what you're saying. And it's not that we're trying to slow it down, it's just that we just don't know what those costs are going to be because there's 4 items.
We just want to make sure we're representing what you want represented, that's all.
We
Just
don't
from
have
my-
a gravel road in town in our city limits that has houses on it that I'm aware of. And that kind of sets the policy, I think, that it will get done at some point in time when it's time.
Well, since you brought that up, Ken, I guess my recommendation to the council is to consider strongly that we have always, at least in the last 30 years, set ourselves apart from rural development in the sense of hard surfacing, water and sewer, for many of the same reasons that already came out here. So it's not a dollar and cents thing. If it is, you could go back into a motion and say, we're not going to put any of it in. Just as well.
Didn't we out by the
I
golf
wouldn't say
course
that.
do water and not
Well,
sewer?
Yeah.
I mean, but it also negates the 2006, agreement that you made with Southern Sioux. You made that for a very specific reason to differentiate ourselves from the rural that has no fire protection. And so, all I'm getting at is, I think it's not a good policy for the growth of the city not to have hard surface streets, full water, full sewer. We learned that on North Greenview, or excuse me, Willow Run development. We allow septic needed to be converted. Winslow, they're having trouble with their septics. That request is going to be coming in to you to do something about it.
Isn't Willow kind of an unfair example, though? Because you're sitting in wetland, you're sitting down in...
I don't think it's unfair at all.
Well-
It was in a rural setting, so we allowed septic, but we had to convert it.
The state has significantly strengthened the requirements and the change-outs of septics over the years, and to get things approved and to actually get the septic to get all the way to even the creeks is almost an impossible task for a homeowner to accomplish from the state requirements. So it becomes, and if we would allow septics up on a hill, I don't know how far they'd have to take their drainage down if they're in the city to be acceptable. But my question is, so you believe just taking out the at least 2 lots sold criteria makes it more difficult to sell these lots or even to do the engineering? Or is it just going to slow down the process?
Well, I'm okay with slowing down the process, and Neil and Sitzman Real Estate can sell them according to your wishes as far as them bringing their request back to you.
Right.
I'm okay with that. I think it's a dangerous thing to start saying that infrastructure expansion, street, water, sewer, and storm, has to have an economic payback in order for you to say yes. That ain't never gonna happen. You can decide right here and now that we're not gonna extend another street, another water line, another sanitary, or another storm, and make it economically pay for itself. I feel you gotta look at the global total system for that to make sense, not individual project by project.
When you add on water and you add on sewer, you're adding onto a large system.
Yes.
So the cost will come back over the years. I'm sure that there are areas that
Yes.
didn't pay to begin with, but there are areas down in my end of town where the sewer's been paid for probably 100 years, but we're still collecting sewer.
And we're talking about running streets, water, and sewer to a platted development,
Yeah.
And so, yes,
approved platted
it's
development.
already platted, it's approved, it's now filed at the courthouse, so we can sell those lots. And so it's part of the city incorporated system, and we offer those things. So I think it should be more of a question of when it goes in, not if it goes in. It needs to go in.
We should be thrilled that we have the opportunity to expand it. Really. There are a lot of towns would love to have new additions going out on the fringe. And God bless those that ran water all the way out to Willow, because I remember that was real controversial. They ran water a long ways to get out to Willow Run. And at the time, they probably couldn't economically put sewer out there. But now that the opportunity has arrived, then we've taken care of it.
But in general, when a developer comes in and plats an area, he has all the infrastructure in that plat and then gives it back to the city. K&S, for instance, they do the streets, they do the sewer, they do the water, they give it back to the city, they do their lots. This is a little bit different. We're doing it for a development instead of the development doing it for us. How is this different? And I realize that I can see a couple differences, but how is this different than Mr. Kellen's request 3 weeks ago? Saying, hey, extend a street 700 feet for us, put water and sewer in for us, because I've got a lot that I might sell.
But it's not an approved plat.
It has to have a,
But if it was an approved plat, he would have to have the cost of his street, sewer, and water going up there. And we say, I mean, at least there was no decision made, but I think the general overtone was, we can't put in a 700-foot private driveway for you. Maybe it wasn't. That's my thinking was that.
I missed that meeting, I apologize for missing, so I didn't have a chance to voice on that particular project. I think that needs to go in as well. You have a 1997 standard agreement that was developed as part of acquiring 24 properties along 14th Avenue East from Highway 3 to 18th Street South, and on 18th Street South from 14th Avenue to 6th Avenue West. And there was 24 property, Rex was here for sure, maybe some of you others. So I'm not gonna say it wasn't controversial, but it was pretty all-encompassing that the property owners got together on that, and the city did in fact say and reaffirmed what we were going to do then, and it's consistent with what I'm recommending today. And that is, when it comes to extending infrastructure, the city's going to extend it with paving. And the city agreed to pay the center 24 feet along all of 14th, all of 18th. And we've had several accomplishments from Highway 3, if you can picture it. We did in fact pave that all the way down to 12th Street. And we went after STP funds, we used road use tax funds, we did some special assessment when it came to the new law enforcement center and others that put in the curb and gutter, we special assessed that. The most recent is Judge Bradley, but the center 24 feet was paid for by the city. I would propose the same thing here. But, I mean, we got to first have the notion that we're all on the same page, that if it's inside the city limits on a platted subdivision, we are going to pave those. We are going to extend sewer, extend city water, and address the stormwater needs accordingly. And I don't know if that means extending the storm sewer system in light of the fact that we have the detention basin there, perhaps not, because we can drain it into there. So, and then we got another a major complex, something that's really complex on this one compared to others. The annexation line, the corporate line, is right down the middle. So to the north, it's out in the county. You have no jurisdiction there, none, zero. You can't special assess it, you can't do nothing. So you either pay for it fully in order to do it, but you're not going to special assess it. Or you need to ask the county to assist. In the case of Key Avenue, we did that. That was a joint project. In the case of Marble Avenue, when Willow Run went in, since that was an example, that was a city-county project, 50-50. So the county did agree, 50-50.
But
We haven't talked funding sources yet on this, and that is another avenue we need to pursue.
in order to talk funding sources and discussions with the county, anything though, we need those preliminary engineering numbers. So I still think that the
Agreed.
motion is correct in starting at the right place. And then once we get those numbers and get those in, then we have something concrete to discuss. And I would imagine that in addition to the component costs for water, sewer, and road, there would also be a fourth cost, and that's if you do everything at once. Because I have to believe that putting in both water and sewer at the same time, as opposed to doing one at a time, is going to cost less.
Not a lot, because they go in different holes, and they got to be far enough apart, so
There's some economy, but I would tend to...
Yeah, it may not be a lot, but
Yeah.
it would be some. But I really think we need to, I think the motion is correct in getting those numbers, because until we have those, whether 2 lots are sold or 4 lots are sold or whatever, at some point, we're going to need those figures.
And just for the record, I want it to be clear that Ken, what you say is right. You've got parts of your town that are probably 125 years old and you're still collecting sewer. development costs money. There's no question. You can't just go by a dollar for dollar, it's gonna pay next week or next month or next year. I understand that, so I'm reasonable there. The thing that I would want to encourage maybe is if lots are sold, what is the commitment on building on those lots? Because there's a lot of people that could come in and just buy a lot. And then we're sitting on a large amount of cost for infrastructure with no commitment that we're gonna build in 16, 17, or we already have our plans drawn. So it's a little bit, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I think maybe we need to stiffen the lot sold bit to, have we pulled a building permit? Now I'm gonna look a lot more favorable at, I got $2 500,000 houses sitting up there? Okay, let's talk about all these things, because, you know, so, anyway,
I'd totally go along with that.
Okay.
That makes sense.
okay.
I'm good with the motion, sorry for preaching. I just
I think the whole thing was a good discussion.
I just think
really
we
do.
need to make sure that we.
It's a good discussion to have, because I think there's a lot of people that think all of a sudden all we're doing is helping this guy or this guy or this person. Well, in the end, we're not trying to pick winners and losers here.
And-
That's not the council's
Right,
job.
and not to lose an opportunity of an offer, if an offer does come.
Yeah.
And we're talking about this in 2 weeks again, I'm sure we've got enough history that we can pretty accurately project an engineering estimate of the cost for those three systems.
If
So much a foot.
I
or-
could do that for you if they absolutely had to.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
And then we go with the next part of the discussion. But
Right.
right now, since we don't have those offers in front, I think it's a good discussion. But I also think it's, you know, been sitting here a long time. I think every once in a while, it's good to have this 20 minutes or so to talk about things like this, because sometimes we fail to think about certain things and so forth, so.
Three more things, Rex, that differentiate this from K&S. K&S, you did approve a $4,300 incentive. That is not offered here. Next, when K&S, prior to K&S going in, it was Canaley Ranch Edition. And the city did, in fact, extend sanitary sewer fully at its expense, all the way along 6th and all the way into the cul-de-sac that eventually got built by K&S. But it was done for Canaley. So I just want to make sure that you guys remember that. We'd already put our best foot forward for the K&S. Thirdly, I want to state that at Crescent Ridge, the city, for all intensive purposes, owns it. This is not being done for somebody else. And everybody know why I'm saying that? You bought out the county for a price so that the county didn't have financial obligation at Crescent Ridge. LBIC has fee title, but the city is essentially the only financer here. So you effectively own those lots. I just want to, so that differentiates that from a K&S or a Winslow as well.
So we're a developer and an owner. And then we have to do the infrastructure. So then when we share the costs, it's kind of like sharing between John and Ken. It's the same agenda, right?
Yep.
So all we got to do is make sure you bring 2 sold offers next meeting, Neil? Sound like a deal? Bring a couple sold offers and we'll deal with it next meeting, okay?
But in the meantime, Scott's going to start the engineering and design.
Right.
I will get things
We can't dig for 5 months anyhow.
Might be just a little hard right now. Okay. Like I said, I think that's a very valid discussion. Listing of fees, charges, and license, D3. Last year's listing of fees is there, proposed 2015 fees are there. Questions by the council on any items in black or in red, which is the new increases?
And these have all been reviewed by staff and agreed to by staff,
Yes.
correct?
Anything anybody's got?
did like the fact that the fire department didn't, or fire services didn't round up for hazardous materials.
81 cents.
76 cents.
Some of those are set by the state.
Ah,
The fire departments use statewide for billing, so those that are rounded up, or those that are new, are set by state code 455, so that goes up every year. And sometimes they jump $2, and sometimes they go down, and kind of a victim of circumstance.
and sometimes they pick just a strange number.
Yeah, I
and-
know.
Yeah.
I would have definitely rounded up to something even, because
Yeah.
it's easier when I do the billing, but no.
I enjoyed that, so.
Yeah.
Jason, building permit fees is all black. There's no new red on here.
Correct.
Are you getting your work done to review these and look at these for what we're getting charged for fees?
I think we are comparable to other communities.
Okay.
I'd hate to raise them and make them too high. I
No,
mean, every time.
I just wanted to make sure, because it seems like you're doing a lot of work on some of these areas and talking to
Good.
people and stuff like that. And I just want to make sure we're paying for your time.
Well, thanks, Rex.
Well, I mean, they're getting a benefit from your advice. They're getting a benefit from your knowledge of the code. That's what they're really paying for. It's not supposed to be a fundraiser, I understand that. But on the same token, it seems like you're taking a lot more time trying to get those done. And I just wanted to make sure that people looked at that.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with them. I know it has been a couple years since we've raised them, but you hate to raise them too much, and then people start to think twice about, I know it's not a huge cost in the overall building of a new home, but I guarantee you just about everybody complains who fills out a building permit, complains about that cost
Okay.
being so high, but it's
Jason,
comparable to other.
Aren't these fees pretty much, I was gonna say, comparable to
Yeah.
other cities our size?
Yes.
Yeah, but see, what I'm talking about is he's got front-end cost and back-end cost. We did 7 lots today, and he had another whole thing that he had to put together on all 7 lots. And those people are picking up $100 a month in property tax savings. We want them to save the money, but there's a cost associated with that. And we're not getting that cost. Just for reference, that's all I'm doing, is just throwing information out. I'm okay with it this year, but I think we should make sure we're looking at that.
Okay. Okay. To answer the question you're about to ask, Clark. Swimming pools? Is that what you're going to ask?
Swimming pools,
I'm not going to make it a separate thing like
You're gonna bring it into
fences.
code?
It'll be just under the chart of our normal building permit fees,
Excellent.
okay?
The total valuation part.
I've been up here
That
for a
one.
year now.
They can read your mind now.
So what was John Rexlink's question? That's
I can't read your mind, John.
He actually answered my question before I asked.
You are underpaid.
Okay, well, that was pretty simple.
Motion adopting resolution number 15-1 approving the recommended list of fees, charges, license for the calendar year of 2015 without amendment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other questions? Roll call, Bev.
Rexmichael?
Yes.
Turkey?
Yes.
Snap?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Ritzau?
Yes.
Motion passed. Great. Okay, let's go down to the discussion. We're going to start with Kenny. Anything?
Nothing today, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to pass.
I have nothing.
I've got nothing. Thank you.
Scott, one thing I brought up last meeting, I'm sure Bill followed up on it, but their intersection on Central and Plymouth, we don't want to do anything this winter, but we need to have a game plan for sometime in the spring.
Yeah, I agree. I took a little bit of a look at it, and the middle section has gone down. Exactly why, I'm not sure. We need to do a little more investigating there.
And we may want to look at something like a poured stamped concrete or something as opposed to individual brick or,
Yep. Yeah, I got it down.
okay, that's all I got.
Okay, we got Steve. Steve was, Steve's supposed to be here?
Who?
Scott? There's Scott? Okay, I thought Steve Hansen was going to be here with his report, but Scott,
Nope.
you're up.
And I want Bill to first go through what's required of a city by code.
Okay, a few weeks ago, you asked me to do some research and find out what we have to be a city. And there's 8 items. First, we need to have a form of government, and we're a mayor-council form. Second, you have to appoint a city clerk, so you have to have one employee, which has to be a city clerk. You must provide...
Well, that's job security for what?
Best days.
That's the only one.
I tried to change that, but I can't change it.
There you go, Bev, you're safe, you're safe.
You have to provide police protection. Now, that can be paid employees or that can be contracted out. You have to provide fire protection, and again, that can be paid employees or it can be contracted out. You must provide support for library services for your residents. That can be a contribution to a city library. It can be a contribution to the county library. It's 6 3/4 cents per thousand assessed value. So your required contribution in some form to a library services is about $30,000 roughly. You must cooperate with Homeland Security and Emergency Management to establish a local emergency management commission. You must provide water supply and sewage disposal. Again, that can be paid employees or that can be contracted out. And you must maintain public places, including streets, sidewalks, bridges, and other public property. Again, that can be paid employees and that can be contracted out. And this requirement can be passed on to abutting property owners for sidewalks and right-of-ways. So those are the 8 requirements that are set out in code that you must comply with in order to be a city. So that was kind of an eye-opening thing. It gives us some basis to start the budgeting process and realize what is required, what we can do and can't do. So that's the list as we found it.
Thanks, Bill.
That kind of sets the stage for, I guess, what I want to present on staff. We're finding ourselves at, if not a milestone, at least a mark in the sand for the city, I feel, because of our aging staff. And I think before you, I did have Christie put the staff changes as the overall concepts. And I want to go through this for the benefit of those watching TV as well as who's in the chambers. Many of our staff are approaching retirement, and I think the 2 that just recently retired is kind of proof of that. We are trying to do a thorough job of figuring out department by department what is needed from a skilled and certified staff standpoint versus an unskilled staff. We do believe that safety has to be paramount and it has to be completely achieved, just not only for our own employees but just for the liability sake of the city. Staff in each department need to meet certain requirements, and we need to know what those requirements are in order to fully staff ourselves. Outsourcing of various functions and tasks that aren't required by in-house staff. And what we're talking about there is not necessarily the entire function within the department, but various components of each department can be looked upon differently than the entire department itself. So one example would be what came up a few minutes ago on the water main. Installing a water main. Does that really need to be done by city staff? Installing a sewer main. Installing a storm sewer. Does that need to be done by city staff? Our contention, no, it does not. Oversight of potable drinking water to our citizens. That's what's important. That's what we need certified staff for. That's why we need fully skilled staff. It is not installing the fire hydrants, valves, mains, et cetera, et cetera. We do think that the city, should take full advantage of staff reductions by attrition. Meaning if somebody's retiring, is a perfect time to really do a self-evaluation by department, and the city as a whole for that matter. We can eliminate by attrition. That has a lot less impact on our employees' personal lives. So I think that becomes paramount to me when we start looking at staff issues. However, reduction of staff when we look at reorganizing some of these departments, and I think we do need to reorganize some of our departments. As we grow and get bigger, department by department, it's going to have additional pressure on us to do more, and yet we've got just a certain amount of staff, so if we don't have adequate staff to do the function at hand, then we need to outsource, or we're going to have to hire additional people. So that's what I'm talking about there. Review of the efficiencies of full-time versus part-time. Often we say, well, maybe that function could be done by part-time staff versus full-time staff, and vice versa, but I'm going to take the first one first. Hiring part-time staff isn't all what it's cracked up to be because of the quality of the skilled or unskilled person you're talking about, and whether or not they can really meet the demands that the city places on that position, all come into play. And then with the Health Care Act limiting from what used to be 40 hours a week for a total of 6 months per our bargaining unit contract, now all of a sudden is looked upon week by week. And now we need to make sure that we make sure that it's less than 30, 29 or less, in order to not hit the Health Care Act. That becomes a real burden on the city as it relates to part-time people. Eliminating scheduled overtime, and I put quotes at that. I'm not saying eliminate all overtime, it's impossible. Some have argued this point with me. But scheduled overtime, what I'm talking about there, if we know we need coverage at the wastewater treatment plant or the water treatment plant Saturday after Saturday for 52 Saturdays straight, do we do that with straight time or do we do it with overtime? That's a question. I don't think we should schedule overtime for that purpose. I think we're smarter than that. I think we can schedule regular time staff for even weekend work. Now, is that going to be, I'm not going to be a light person, but to me, I think it's possible, and therefore I think we should do it. We need, as more and more of the work goes to the private sector, and we get it outsourced, we have left staff, I think we do need to reevaluate the equipment that we have at hand. Do we need it all, or don't we? That needs to be decided. I think the administration and management of the essential and the code-required functions need to be there in-house. And so Bill just read those to you. So I do think that administration and management of those areas should remain in-house and not be outsourced. But then that does say that there's a whole lot of areas, and I was going to say after Bill got done, now there's a short list of what we have to do. There's a whole lot of things that we do, And they all fit in the other category. And here, that means maybe a lot of that can be outsourced. A lot of that stuff that doesn't fall on the list of have-tos. I also got criticized recently for trying to save tax dollars. And, I'll accept that criticism any day. Any day, any hour of any day. That is and has maintained to be one of the goals since I've become your administrator in 1995. And if anybody has a problem with that, then you need to get rid of me. Same thing with utility dollars. They're not tax dollars, but we all pay them. Storm, solid waste, sanitary, water, they're all getting paid into City Hall on a monthly basis. We try our best to save those dollars. But those are just goals. And to the extent that we achieve that goal, praise to us, at least from my perspective. What we got to do for sure is have a balanced budget. I think we got to have a balanced budget, and that's why Bill and I and others are going through department by department and reevaluating the staff needs in order to achieve a balanced budget. Prioritizing between the required functions and the non-essential functions will be done in all departments. And again, I want to repeat, as the city grows geographically and fiscally, increasing pressure will be realized to balance the operations of each department with the increasing staff needs, or we're going to have to hire the work done, which means outsourcing. And I want to give you a few examples because we have not briefed all of you on what has transpired just within the last 30 to 60 days. In the water department, one certified water operator has retired, and we don't intend to replace that position. Not going to be replaced. One additional certified water operator has not met the minimum certification requirements. That person will be removed as the operator in that position. One additional certified water operator will be retiring by year-end 2015. We intend to begin immediately a search and to hire a replacement for that person by April of 2015 so that a 6-month on-site training can be available. And so that because of the small numbers of staff that we have at the water department, we can't afford to go for several months following employment after the retirement occurs. We are currently evaluating several concepts that I already mentioned, so I'm not going to repeat them in total, but I just want to mention them. For the water department, the elimination of the scheduled overtime, outsourcing non-essential work tasks, outsourcing to private contractors safety-related functions, and that does in fact include water leaks and main installations. Outsourcing to private consultants things like locate services. Very time-consuming. There's a reason Mid-American Energy and many, if not all, of the other utilities, and I'm talking cable, telephone, fiber, they don't do it in-house anymore. You will get one locate person coming out, locating services for several of those with the one Iowa One call. And I think the city's got to jump on that bandwagon. We've got to determine what unskilled list of tasks exists, and to our extent, we don't believe that our certified water operators should be doing those. And if somebody wants to criticize that that's mopping the floors or washing the windows or pushing the snow or mowing the grass or doing some real trivial repair and maintenance items, so be it. I don't think a $30 an hour certified water operator with a grade 3 or 4 should be doing those tasks. We're better than that, I believe. All of that being said, we do need to evaluate the equipment that's already based at the water department and whether it needs to be based there or not. And one final thing at the water department, because of eliminating staff in that department, we are pursuing hiring one full-time, unskilled maintenance worker that would be assigned only part of the week to that department. The other part of the weeks would be assigned to 3 other departments: wastewater, public works, and the convention. That's all I've got on the water department. On the wastewater department, one certified wastewater operator / lab tech has retired, and we do not intend to specifically replace the person. We are going to and have to replace that position. We have to have a lab tech operator in the lab. What we have done is ask for voluntary transfers within this existing city staff, and we have 3 have applied, and we selected 1. So that position has been refilled. The vacancy opened up by the water operator that has been selected for the lab tech position will not be filled. The city will not hire additional staff at the wastewater treatment department. Although there had been some previous talk, it was just talk, it was evaluation, it was early and not totally thought through. So as far as hiring additional staff, because we have a second wastewater treatment plant. So that was never a firm decision, ever. I want to put that to rest because I was criticized on that issue. It was talked about by Bolton and Mink. It was talked about by your wastewater superintendent and the assistant wastewater superintendent, but it was never approved by city administration, ever. But I'm going to put it to rest completely. We need to get our arms wrapped around the wastewater treatment plant number 2 before any decision gets made as far as hiring additional staff to run that plant. That plant is very high-tech. That plant, we spent $21 million on it, as all of you know, which means it's got every bell, every whistle, and quite a bit of redundancy built in. And a lot of it is on a hands-off automatic switches. And I think we need to run that and get some months and perhaps years behind our belt before we make any rash decision about hiring additional people just because we built something. I don't think at this point it is needed. Just like water, and I won't go back through any of it, but all 6 items that I mentioned about the water department, I could reiterate about the wastewater department, and we intend to go through those. And that's the elimination of overtime and outsourcing, et cetera, et cetera. The part-time person, unskilled maintenance worker, would be assigned a day and a half at the wastewater plant as well. We're also looking at other departments besides water and wastewater. The library board is evaluating currently cost reduction options, and I think one of those are going to be on their agenda today at 5 o'clock. It was going to be yesterday at 5 o'clock, but because of the snowstorm, they had to postpone. In the Public Works Department, we have been waffling for a number of years on how that department is structured, and so we're reevaluating that structure. In addition, we're also reevaluating task by task what that department does for the city and how it does it, and more on that to come. We're not completely through that analysis. I think the departments that are already outsourced, and so this city's got a fair amount of experience with outsourcing. I think all of those can be reevaluated by both you guys as well as administration as we go through the 2016 budget, and that includes airport, recreation, golf, and economic development. I think those can be reviewed just as part of the budget process. So that's where we're at, and hopefully that brings not only the public, but the citizens up to date. We're not trying to affect the personal lives of our employees any more than necessary. However, I think to stay strong and fiscally sound as a city of Lamar's, I think we need to do this at this time. And it's going to be tough for some people, and I'll publicly apologize for that, but I think those kind of hard decisions need to be made in order so that we can continue enjoying the life we do have in Lamar's. And we just can't be complacent. I think if John said that just because we used to do it, that doesn't mean we have to continue to do it that way. So I can answer any questions, or there'll be more on that to come.
I think the clear point from both of you is that there's a lot of people think there's a lot of requirements the city has, and there's really very little requirements the city has. We've chosen a lot of quality of life issues all through the time I've been here, but we don't choose them lightly, and I don't make light of other people's comments about those quality of life because their issues might be different than mine. I remember very vividly when I started on the council, the first mile on the rec trail was a donation by Dolores and Al Mazer, and I still wasn't sure it was right. The second mile on the rec trail, I voted no 3 different times, if I remember right, because they wanted to put up 21 signs that explained that there was a curve on the rec trail and stuff like that. And I thought that was totally ridiculous, but that's how we had to do it to get federal money. And the last 7 or 8 votes on the rec trail, I voted for it because people use it. So just because you vote one way one year doesn't mean you don't vote a different way the next year. So we've got to look at these things. We've got to analyze these things every year. Going through the budget process has been extremely painful some years, other years less painful. But with the legislature's changing of the property taxes and the rollbacks and whether they're actually going to backfill them or not, and the commercial property tax rollbacks, it's going to be tougher and tougher for the city to be all things to all people. And we've got to do it in the most efficient manner we can. And I think everybody up with the council wants to do it in the most efficient manner it can. I don't think there's anybody in the room that likes paying taxes. And that's what you say, enough said? Okay?
Scott, could I ask a question unrelated to that, on the new building being built out there? What's holding up the entrance doors? I see we got plywood on them, but...
Painting. They have been shipped to a painter to do it inside due to the severe cold. And we're waiting for them to come back to be mounted.
Oh, okay,
So they're going to be painted indoors and then mounted,
okay.
just because of where we live. Now, CIP, I need to go through, Rex.
I mean, you got the information here. I'm not sure if you, unless you have something specific you want to talk about. I mean, we do a whole lot of things, and we got a whole lot of things still in the pines.
Nope, I just got a couple of statements I'd like to make on that. You see on the 5-year plan side for 2014 in review as well as the 2015 looking ahead. I don't have any specifics in those 6 categories, but we will be developing that in that 13-column spreadsheet, so that will come to you a little bit later. In the left-hand column in both lists, I just wanted to point out that many of the things that are listed for 2014 are still in progress, and so that's why they show up again on the 2015. We need to finish those, and so again, those lists will be massaged and updated as time goes on, but I wanted to get you a feel for what we're looking at that's going to be on the CIP. So.
Okay.
Can I ask a question on your staffing? Is it ever looked at, and once again, it's just an idea, it's a thought, I know that Brad has mentioned that part-time mowing has become kind of a hard position to fill.
Yes.
Has it ever looked at to get some employees that could float? I mean, I'm talking a labor level employee that would be full-time city employees that could float, you know, and Brad could have them for those however many weeks, and then they'd maybe be, you know, because one thing I have seen in a year is that our city does a really good job, for what I'm seeing. When it's time to clear snow, water department people clear some snow. And when it's time to help on a busted sewer main, street department people help on a busted sewer, which is wonderful. Could we do that and get rid of part-time and the whole Obamacare stipulations 29 hour and actually add a couple employees, lower grade, that would float? It's just, it's a question. It's a question.
That is exactly what we meant by item I, the efficiencies of full versus part-time.
Sure.
You're hitting it right on that.
Okay, okay.
Scott, what does CIP stand for?
Construction Improvement Program?
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else we got?
I got a couple of things,
Oh, okay, I'm
if that's
sorry.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you thought of that. Just want to remind everybody that the budget committee meetings are starting this week and go into the next 2 or 3 weeks. Just, we'll get the budget pages out to you shortly before the meetings or a couple days before the meetings. Also, I want to remind everybody that we are doing dog licensing this year. You do need to get your new dog tag. They're available at City Hall or at either one of the vets. We're still charging $10 a year for those dog tags. Please get your dog license, so if it is lost, we can get it back to you. That's the most important thing, is to get your animal back to you. That's all I've got.
Okay.